Oof. the Mike, the Mike and Mario show. Oh man, excited to be back once again. Get a chance to hang out with Mario and talk about prior events, and of course, look ahead to what's happening out here. Welcome back to the Mike and Mario show. Mario, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well, and it's Friday the 13th, I guess. You're
Yes,
lucky to be here.
I didn't get that one, but excited to be back, man. Looking forward to connecting. Man, wow, what an interesting week. And so let's how you want to kick this one off? I definitely want to touch on the JP confirmation because
let's start with that.
Surprising, but I came across this visual aid here highlighting how I guess there was a market reversal once the confirmation was put out there publicly. And so lots of speculation as to why now, what happened. So you were sharing some interesting thoughts offline. Share that with the audience if you don't mind.
Yeah. So Jay Powell, most people thought that until yesterday he was the chairman of the Federal Reserve.
Mm-hmm.
And technically he wasn't. He was the chairman pro tempore.
Right.
So what that means is that the Federal Reserve Board had approved him as chairman, but the Senate hadn't confirmed it for 3 months. And you kind of wonder why. But then yesterday, when the market was crashing and everything was hitting the fan, suddenly the Senate confirms him as chairman of the Federal Reserve. And I actually tweeted, did he promise the Senate that he'd stop being hawkish or something?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's what I tweeted out when the news came out. I think someone else tweeted out the news. I hadn't seen it.
Yeah.
And then today you sent me that little chart that the market started rallying right after the news came out. Right. Is it coincidence or is there something more to it? Who knows?
Right. And that's one of the things where when I saw that, I'm like, wow, we definitely got to touch on that just because there's no coincidences in a scheduled and timed great reset. And this plays in also to just the narrative that they're painting on soft landing, hard landing, crash landing, whatever. It's going to be, transformative to say the least. But it's just interesting how at the same time all that took place, beginning of the week, middle of the week, the stable coin situation also unraveled, which also helped the narrative of the digital dollar push because there's more pundits now talking about, needing real stability, utilizing the digital coin narrative as an excuse. So I was talking about that earlier in the week, how everything seems to be like a good setup at this current moment. So, but then once again, nothing is accidental. It's all intentional in my opinion. So, but yeah, interesting times here. So if you want to, let's take a look at the markets real quick. I just got some things here because it looks like we're still in the green on some things. Let me put this on the screen here. So I use TeleTrader here.
Yeah.
If you guys can see that on the screen here. So it looks like this Friday at this current moment, everything appears to be heading upward. So it looks like, I guess, overall, not consumer, but investor sentiment must be high or what?
Well, I think maybe everyone got a little too bearish. The markets have been dropping a lot.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, because I think we are in a long-term bear market for the NASDAQ, S&P.
Yeah.
And even in bear markets, you see rallies, and sometimes they're very strong.
Right.
But one thing that I found interesting about the cryptocurrency kind of dump this week, Bitcoin got down to almost 25,000.
Yeah.
Is that the mainstream media is covering that as if it had like an impact on the overall financial market. I'm seeing headlines that with the crypto rebound, we're seeing the stock market futures open higher in Europe and things like that. And I think they've got a point, actually, even though I don't agree too much with the mainstream media, because if you've noticed the last 6 months or so, a lot of Wall Street banks, we saw the mayor of New York saying he's going to be paid in Bitcoin. There's a lot of push, getting the public into it. And I think it could be a problem now that the cryptos, they're just worth over $1 trillion, but it's so leveraged, with all these stable coins like, is it Luna that broke the buck? You could see Tether break the buck. And there's so much leverage, and there's so many regular investors now involved in cryptocurrencies that it could be, even though it's not a huge market compared to all other assets, it could be a trigger for an overall market trouble.
Contagion, right? And so just to piggyback on that, that article I sent you, I was in the process of listening to it as to how it was mentioned that so with the size of the crypto market as of now, I posted something the other day as well from this high back in November, which I think was 3 point something trillion down to whatever it got to 1.5. That was a major correction. And it looks like, they're comparing it or trying to say that it resembles a subprime market from 2008. And so that right there to me plays into more of a narrative as to why the regulatory bodies can say that we need to really step in now because, and of course they came out, y'all said that it doesn't pose a financial stability risk yet. But then again, they're trying to prevent that by them getting involved. And one of the little rants I went through the other day was how, isn't it interesting how the same people that is a part of the legacy system is also spearheading the transition into this digital. So all those people there are former bankers, and it is in my opinion, they probably have more of an allegiance to their prior employers than they do to us, the people, as public servants.
If I could interrupt, the guy on my left, what's his name? He's the SEC guy.
Gary Gensler.
Yeah, he used to be ex Goldman Sachs. So you look at the guy, Mike Novosky, or he's got a hedge fund.
Novogratz,
Goldman Sachs, right? Powell of Real Vision, ex Goldman Sachs. They've all been pushing the cryptos. Goldman Sachs, they bought an exchange that I used to use a lot called I forgot its name now, Bittrex. That used to be they bought into that. So I think the bankers, Jamie Dimon said a few years ago that Bitcoin was a fraud, but he could be just saying that for the hell of it.
100%.
He's just saying the opposite, and actually,
right.
So because he's thinking, if I say that and people hate me, they'll actually buy it.
It's that good guy, bad guy. Like I'll speak out against it. Similar to how the Federal Reserve Federal Reserve came about. The banking cabal bought the mainstream media, and then they said that it's gonna take away the power from the money trust. So now the money trust is still operational. And to piggyback on that, I'm not sure if you're familiar with. I think it was this past week or this week. Goldman Sachs partners with Coinbase for bank's first Bitcoin-backed loan. So Goldman Sachs went from to talking down about it 3 or 4 years ago to now they're making a loan to the biggest crypto exchange, publicly traded crypto exchange, might I add, Coinbase. So how the tides have turned so quickly. Or this is always a part of the plan.
I think the plan all along has been to allow these developers, individuals who are not paid. To just build the infrastructure for cryptocurrencies, the exchanges,
right?
And now everything's been set up. The bankers come in and gobble it up,
right?
Let the public build it up to pretend that it's a organic system, free market. But that one of the signals that I didn't like 4 years ago or so, maybe more now, end of 2017, they launched the futures on the CME Bitcoin futures, and I said, well, the bankers are going to take over Bitcoin now, and I think I was right.
So watch this. So I love trying to connect the pieces of the puzzle together. So I'm gonna throw this on the screen because I refer to this often. How we were told about this time frame, and what a coincidence that the banks now are, I guess, supportive of this new asset class. At the same time, they've already infiltrated. And my personal opinion is that this current little dip that looks like it's recovering somewhat for some, I think it was instead of an OTC opportunity for the big banks to get in, I said it was a UTT, under the table opportunity for a lot of big wealthy individuals to get in, to where it didn't reflect in the actual price because things were down. So it's my opinion that when they're ready, they're going to basically use crypto digital assets as a funnel out of the old into the new. And the same, as I mentioned, the same people who are responsible for the legacy system are in position of power to make sure that their former employers do well. And this regulatory clarity that's coming has nothing to do with you and I. It's all about, the elite, the wealthy individuals, and the banks, in my opinion. So
and the
that's just my
thing
little
is,
2-cent rant.
the blockchain technology, open ledger, in a decentralized system where the public is in charge, it's not a bad thing, and it's quite anonymous, I would say. But if you apply the blockchain to a centralized system where the government is in charge, they can see everything you're doing, every penny you spend, because they'll know your private key. They'll know, oh, that's Mike's private key.
Right.
He's doing that. He's giving money to Putin's political campaign,
or they could set somebody up and say that there was a transaction from your ledger towards a cause that we no longer support. Therefore, we're going to cut you off real quick. So, speaking of which, I want to just share with you. I love coming across new little websites. So here's the current activity out there in the crypto space. So this is what's happening in real time. But of course, the biggest bubbles on there happen to be Luna and the UST. And watch it. I came across this
down 100%. Wow.
Yeah. So I came across this yesterday, and I'm like, man, so I was doing some predictions, some little, generic TA, and I was telling people by this day it's going to be a penny, and of course it was. So it made me look like I knew what I was talking about. But if you look at this right here, does this not resemble this graph here? The trajectory, does it not resemble this?
The dollar, yeah.
Does it not resemble this? I was like, man, how wide open can that be?
It's what you call a fractal.
Yeah,
that's been happening over 100 years, and that happened over 100 hours. Yeah.
So anyway, I was just like, wow, this is what. And yesterday, before I think it was about 2 or 3 cents, it literally lined up perfectly with. Let me see if I can make it. No, so from like this point, let me see. No, so it lined up perfectly to where I was about to do a little rant, but I didn't. So. Let's keep it moving. For those that are tuned in, definitely throw out some thoughts, ideas, suggestions. We'll jump on it. We got a lot more articles to touch on. But let's touch on let me make sure I'm staying in order here. A true indicator of what it's like out in the streets amongst people who actually have to function in Main Street. University of Michigan sentiment slumps back to 11-year low as inflation fears surge. So we are out here still. The real world economy is not doing too well, while markets are rallying for whatever reason. But this is a part of the narrative. But this is what people are feeling the pinch of. And discretionary spend is down. We got massive layoffs. It's not real good in Main Street, but Wall Street appears to be doing okay. What are your thoughts on this, Mario?
Yes. The Michigan Consumer Sentiment, University of Michigan, some people might think, why is that important? Well, I worked in the markets for 30 years, and that number has always been a bellwether for consumer sentiment, and seeing that the U.S. economy and most Western economies are dependent on credit and spending in the consumer. It's not like a balanced economy where you also have production.
Yeah,
that is worrying. The number I've got it here it was expected to come out at 64 from 65.2 the previous month, and it came out at 59. It's a pretty big drop. And then the inflation expectations stayed at 5.4. So that's another sign of the stagflationary environment that I think is just getting on the way, and it's going to be just like the 70s, if not longer, because I think now the imbalances are much bigger. The credit and currency that has been created dwarfs what was created in the 60s and 70s, I would say.
Yeah. Now, speaking of which, at this current moment, the narrative has not changed. The Fed is, continuing moving forward with their tightening policy. And so you were mentioning earlier how, there's a possibility that given the environment, it's going to be hard to keep that narrative going to where you were saying that based upon, I guess, Elijah and Michael Oliver's interview, the probability of them slowing or reversing. So I don't see that as an option for them, because I think they're operating within a time limit to execute certain amount of things. But share with me on your thoughts on reversal. Can they reverse and then start QE again and prolong this thing?
Up until I think last week's, I think it was last week, the press conference, or Powell was talking to someone, and Michael Oliver from MSA noted that he started talking about that it's going to be data dependent.
Mhm.
So what that means is that if the data start weakening, economic data, then the
Mhm.
Fed, might not keep doing what they're saying they're going to do.
Mhm.
So they could hike another 50 basis points twice. But if you see GDP becoming more and more negative, if you see, let's say, jobless claims starting rising quite sharply, if
Yeah.
you see retail sales dropping, if you see the Michigan sentiment
Mhm.
dropping further, if you see the purchasing managers index
Right.
data dropping below 50, then they could say, oh, we're going to pause for now because the economy is slowing down. And they could say, we're going to pause for now, wait and see, but we'll probably continue raising.
Mhm.
And then in the meantime, something huge could happen, and then they reverse it. I,
Right.
I think that's the way it could play out. And for the markets, you said that the markets are rebounding, even though we had those numbers, but don't forget the markets have been dropping all year long.
Right. Right. Right.
So
I put
it's
it
normal to get a little bit of a rebound.
Right. I put more. I label this stream here: consumer sentiments tank. J.P. Morgan confirm and markets reverse equals a fake out. So don't believe the hike. I'm more confident that, especially, and to me, it seems quite obvious. The more that they're looking to tighten their belts and reel in all the stuff that they've done to pump up this biggest asset bubble in human history, it's only natural that they continue course, that things will continue to be very volatile. So therefore, we can only trend downward until there's a new unleashing of the monetary spigot to inflate things back up. So my projection
Yeah.
is that they're trying to, in this article here, talks about some pain. That might be a new quotation we can use, where it resembles transitory. Like last year was transitory. We know now they reverse course and say, yeah, it's a lot more than that. So this some pain next year could end up being like
Yeah.
catastrophic pain.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I think right now, because I think Yellen yesterday as well said that they'll be able to engineer a soft landing. I don't think she used the word soft landing. She said, well, we'll be able to contain inflation without a recession.
Yeah.
But I think this soft landing narrative is going to be like the transitory narrative.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say comical, but it's not funny, but it's real life.
Well, yeah.
And they're playing with our they're playing with lives. Period. Like the born and the
Yeah.
unborn will suffer the
You
consequences.
know, one book that I think is really, and I've recommended it many times, but I think right now it's even more important to read it, and it's quite thin,
Mhm,
is Fiat Money, Inflation in France by Andrew Dixon White.
mhm,
They're free PDFs, I think. And in 1790s France, they started the experiment in QE. It was called the assignats,
mhm.
which is paper currency. And they were reluctant, the French National Assembly, to start it out
Yeah.
because they knew it could lead to disaster. But then they did it reluctantly, the first issue,
Mhm.
and then the economy improved. But then after a while, everything went downhill,
Yeah.
and they decided to do more, and then it improved, and they kept doing more and more, and they couldn't stop. And at the end, everything imploded. They had this currency collapsed,
Yeah.
and people were ruined. But that's where I think we are. We've had QE since 08, 09, and
Mhm,
they've tried to stop it, but every time they stop, the economy and the markets keel over, and then
mhm.
they have to do more and more. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
QE to infinity.
So so with that's the trend that allow us to project a forecast of what we think could happen. And I think for some reason, like, the gig is up. I really think that because the Great Reset narrative is in play now, that prior performance will not predict future events, in the sense that I just have a hard time believing they're going to reverse course, come back in with prior monetary policies that resemble what has happened over the last 12 years, just because moving forward, they're trying to make sure no one owns anything and they're happy with it. So I can see them literally doing something completely different, i.e., not coming in supporting the markets, letting certain markets kill over and blaming it on Russia. Taiwan, right? China's circling Taiwan right now with ships. That's another event to come. So I see them not wanting to be supportive because they want these bubbles to burst so that they can start doing their plan B, central bank digital currencies, universal basic income, social credit score applications to log into your whatever, control internet. We got a disinformation czar coming, social media crack. I can see that being what they would want. And it's going to be unstable. It's going to be chaotic as hell. But that's the world they want to take us in.
I mean, you could be right about that. So you could get your scenario where they let everything collapse, or you could get the other scenario where they come in again and inflate everything again, and then you get like a hyperinflation, and that's a collapse as well. So what I don't think we're going to get is the middle of the road, the stability.
Right.
So and if you don't have that, you want to have hard assets, precious metals. Precious metals and commodities don't do well when things are like just right. When you have a Goldilocks scenario of, relatively high rates, not high rates, but good interest rates, good growth, reasonable amount of debt, and we don't have that. So you could be right about them pulling the plug as well.
Right. And that's the thing, like, I definitely don't want to be right. I just think, like, the best way to view this is to look at it from as best as you can, an absolute evil standpoint. Like, they are literally trying to enslave humanity, utilizing technology now. And it's no coincidence that the WHO is also in the play right now. I went through the whole spiel earlier how Bill Gates, who backs the general director of the WHO, is in his ear. He's the general director is a fanboy of Bill Gates, and so the takeover is underway.
Yeah,
as a part of the greater plan, of course.
Is that the guy from Ethiopia, right? Who
right.
Be a Marxist rebel or something. Yeah.
Right. Let me share something with you. I put together. Let me see. I just for the sake of trying to help people understand, like, who's one of the primary funders and backers of the technology that is going to be used by the WHO, happens to be the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And when you follow the currency trail, you see that Bill Gates and his crew have invested in every single entity that they're trying to bring to the forefront, of course, backed by U.S. taxpayer dollars, because the government comes in and subsidizes and pumps everything up. We got the fake meat programs. We got all the land being bought up. We got the baby formula crises right now. And of course, I forgot the article, but Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, and all the billionaires invested in this artificial lab grown milk processing that they're going to pump out there. So it's just when you put all that together, it's just like, wow, like it becomes obvious that evil appears to be winning at this current moment. And that's why I'm real pressed on helping people wake up as best I can, just because, the best time to prepare is now, or it would have been yesterday. But once again, it's only so much you can do in your own power before, you have to turn over somebody else higher. So that's my little rant there. But anyway, let's keep moving. Let's keep it moving. What else we got here to touch on? Oh, we cannot go without touching on the intended energy situation that's coming out of the OPEC nations. You sent this to me. Share some insight on this, Mario.
Yeah, I was reading this article yesterday or the day before yesterday, and basically Saudi Arabia and UAE, the head honchos for energy in those countries, are warning that other countries that produce oil and processed distillate goods, products from oil, they haven't done anything to keep up with demand. So their capacity, their infrastructure is very outdated, and the Saudis and the UAE guys are saying, we're pumping as much as we can, but we can't keep up with demand. And then they said as well that the U.S. Congress is trying to punish OPEC.
Yeah.
And they said if they go through this punishment, it's going to make it even worse. And they said that, I don't know if it's a threat or if it's the reality, but they said that if Congress goes through this OPEC bill, I think it's called NOPEC bill,
really?
it could result in a rise in oil prices of 200 to 300%. So right now, oil is around $100. So you could see oil at $200 to $300. So I think that's worrying, and the fact that Finland and Sweden are looking to join NATO, that's not going to help the relationship between the West and the Russians. I think the Russians have said now that they're going to cut the gas supply to Finland on Monday. So yeah, and I think the West, especially Europe, we've been trying to get out of fossil fuels and go into this renewable green energy, and it's not that simple. So we're speaking about the energy crisis last year in September. We're warning people already, but I don't think it's over, and it's going to get a lot worse.
Not at all. And that's the thing where looking ahead to the state agenda prior to all this chaos, the Green New Deal was what they were trying to sell, 50 trillion or so dollars, and over a 10-year span. That right there encompasses all this transition to where, as you mentioned, the lack of investment into energy from the old standpoint is done. Now they're trying to move into the renewable stuff, which to me has proven to be unsustainable due to geographical regions and areas and timing. And so once again, it's more of a consolidation of power towards that new world agenda where there'll be stakeholders, not shareholders.
Actually, I saw also an article. I didn't send it to you, but it was about BlackRock, that they're gonna loosen their standards, ESG, environmental, societal, and governance. Yeah, because they're realizing that they need to invest more in oil and what they call fossil fuels. And I say fossil fuels like that because a lot of people don't think that oil is not a fossil fuel. And that's another argument. But it looks like BlackRock is actually backtracking. So in a way, that could be a good thing, that BlackRock is reversing. And if BlackRock is reversing, I think a lot of other investors are, because it's the biggest. They control $10 trillion in investments.
So
I saw it in the Daily Telegraph a couple of days ago, the story.
Okay, so here's a question, Mario. Why now? Why the pivot? What
because
else?
They realize that it takes a lot longer to switch.
Pull off the greatest heist in humanity. But here's the thing where, once again, I always look at things from a skeptical viewpoint. That's what we're being told. And of course, I think it could be a way for them to buy more time, just because they realize the difficulty in trying to get everybody on board. Because I talked about the other day how, I guess Kevin O'Leary, one of the, Shark Tank guys, big, Wall Street guy, he was on a Bitcoin podcast talking about how Larry Fink put out a letter last year, basically warning all CEOs, saying that, by this time you need to make sure you're fully compliant, or you won't be able to secure financing in this new banking model being set up. And I think there's been somewhat of a hiccup, hopefully a pushback. I will hope a pushback,
or sure. maybe they're gone too quickly and they're creating too much havoc,
right?
And they're like, oh, let's take our foot off the accelerator.
Right.
Or else, we're gonna crash.
Right. And that's the thing.
Our plan.
My so on the pushback side of things sounds fair, just because all of these corporations, these publicly traded companies, if they comply fully with that, they're losing out big time, because they're already having shortage issues, cost of operations going through the roof, and you name it, they're being transformed right before their own eyes. And I hope a lot of them are concerned with their own financial futures, because you play ball with these guys here, you're going to miss out. There's no winning for you as well. So because you won't have it, your doors will close flat out. Like, you won't be able to stay open longer. And that's what we're experiencing now in the tech sector. A lot of these tech companies are closing because people work from home and opting out of the whole paradigm. So it's anyway, go ahead. What are you gonna say?
I'm gonna share the story with you so I can prove to you guys that hold this back. There you go. You see, that was from May 11th. BlackRock ditches green activism over Russia energy fears. Fund Titan says investing in traditional energy sources is now required to boost security. So here we go. BlackRock has warned it will vote against most shareholder green activism this year, for being too extreme and a significant U-turn by the world's biggest money manager. So there you go.
Yeah, that says it right there. So we will see. I'm of course, like to be optimistic about things. I hope that the pushback is happening, and companies are realizing that their livelihoods and the longevity of their companies is subject to not jumping on board wholeheartedly. Because if you do, you're on the losing side. So, okay, let's get to a couple more articles here. Then we open up for some questions. What else we got to touch on? So I don't know. Did we hint on this a little bit? Oops, where we go? Did we hint on this a little bit here? About the price controls is coming, possibly if this bill pass.
Yeah, I think that's significant. I don't know. I mean, I try to not follow politics too much, but I guess you have to keep an eye on things. House Democrats to pass gas price gouging bill, other relief options on the table. So back in the early 70s, President Nixon also he froze prices as well, and all that led to was shortages and higher prices. So it will have politicians always do the opposite of what they should do to help the public. And this happened in France in the 1790s. They put price controls because they were blaming business people and merchants and everything for the higher prices, not themselves who were pumping all the currency and debt and spending for the inflation. So I don't know. Have you looked further into that? Do you think this is going to go through?
It'd be hard because we're getting the good guy, bad guy. I've noticed over the last week there's been a lot of party blaming, and especially when we start surrounding this whole cryptocurrency situation here. So I don't know at this current moment. I'm not sure which politicians are on the take and which ones might be operating from a genuine let's protect our nation type of stance, because I've always talked about how my personal opinion, either you're corrupt or you're compromised. You fall into either two camps. There's no in between, because you wouldn't be in that seat for long if you did not comply or allow some things to fly over your head.
I guess the exception to the rule is Ron Paul.
Right. And so so like once again, I don't talk about the Paul family, but I want to point out that in this current game, they want people to be able to voice their opinions to make it appear that there are some people out there pushing back. But then again, Ron Paul and Rand Paul, they never go too far with truth. They know the full story, but they'll never cross that threshold. And that's why I'm saying they're not corrupt, but they've been compromised because they know their limits as to what they can get away with, what they can't. So that's the good guy, bad guy. I'll push back on this topic because they'll let me, but I won't touch that one because, I know what happened. So and that's where, when it comes to politics, I'm like, I would like to be hopeful, but at this part of the game, coming towards the end game, I wouldn't put my hope in anybody. But here's more on that little price control situation I just typed in real quick. Sorry, due to allocation, we can serve no more gasoline today. So
the thing is that you put a price cap on fuel or anything else, producers. If the cost of producing those goods are higher than the price, they'll stop, because there's no point in selling that for a loss. And when they stop producing, you get more shortages. So
right. On top of the deliberate withholding of supply, because I'm hearing the diesel market, ships aren't moving and all types of. There's a warning sent out in the U.S. for all the truckers that diesel now is going to be problematic. So gas up early. The article said, they encourage all trucks to make sure they gas up in the evening, because you don't know in the morning you're going to have an opportunity to do so. So, all right, so let's get some question thoughts. I see a super chat. Let me address this. Chris, appreciate you, man. He says, during the Great Reset, where a new currency will be issued, will that new currency have less purchasing power than what we currently have? Thanks. Okay. It says, during a Great Reset, when new currency is issued, will that currency have less purchasing power than? I think my personal opinion is that whatever is going to be put out there as a solution to the problem that they're trying to run from, it'll have a little bit of stability, but then again, it have to adjust to the market conditions as well. Therefore, especially in the U.S., there's going to be some readjusting downward to make up for all that prior obligations and debt. So it's going to be eroded into eventually, depending on how this transitions. That's why I think they want it to be digitally interoperable with other central banks, so they can do it together if need be, to account for imbalances. So that's my opinion, but there will be some adjustments for sure. There'll be no stability coming from another fiat version of anything.
Well, I guess looking at like what's happened in other countries, for example, Brazil,
Mm-hmm.
the last time they got a new currency and a reset, I think it was 1994 with the real.
Mm-hmm.
And it does bring stability and more purchasing power because you've just gone from a system that's collapsed. But the trick is that once a currency is launched, the only way it will go in the long term is down in terms of purchasing power. Because the real in 1994 bought more than $1,
Mm-hmm.
and now a dollar buys like 5 reals. So yeah, so it will be better than what we have now,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not going to last forever.
Yeah, and to because so my thing is, no matter what currency is reissued, it's still probably operate under the same policies. Fiscally speaking, as well as monetarily speaking. If those same two entities are still controlling things, the only thing they
Yeah.
can do is further erode what purchasing power we have, because they're going to use debt on the other side of that. You know what I'm saying? So it's going to be that, more debt, less purchasing power,
Yeah.
more monetary expansion. So that's the thing. Like there's
Uh,
nothing good that can come from our government and central banks working together, because
no,
they're working
the,
against us.
the thing is what it will mean. It's not going to change the underlying system, and the underlying system is a Keynesian, big government, central bank controlled economy, and
Yeah,
it's going to be even worse because these people don't believe in individual freedom, free markets, competition, sound money.
right.
So I've got no desire to save in whatever new currency comes about. Um, I'll stick to being my own central banker, as the going said, as the saying goes,
Right.
with traditional money, i.e., gold and silver, and maybe some other, I don't know, platinum.
Yeah.
Even though I don't have platinum.
Here's that Brazilian real, and this is far that goes back.
Well, you see,
90.
a dollar was worth less than a real,
Mm-hmm.
and now this shows if you turn that
Damn.
chart upside down,
Yeah.
that's how badly the real is done. But in whenever it started, 94, I think.
Yeah. It was.
Yeah, in 94, it was a big relief because prior to that, the old currency had kind of collapsed, and they were able to do this reset, and
Mhm.
things improved. But you can see that gradually it's the dollar has risen against it,
Mhm.
but it doesn't mean to say that the dollar is a good currency.
Right. It's
It's
just
just-
it's just a global measuring stick for
yeah,
now.
not a very good one at that.
Exactly. But yeah, once again, it's not a very good one overall. But if you're awake and aware and realize the bigger picture,
Mm.
especially here in the U.S., it's been a blessing to us. And that's the part where it's changing. And that's why I think,
Mm.
our standard of living and all those things, we're going to be brought down to reality that
Oh yeah,
once we no longer have that reserve status at some point, then our lifestyles might reflect that of a second, third world country where there's another measuring stick and we got to measure up to it. And of course,
yeah.
right now, it looks like it's going to be gold to start. Bankers want Bitcoin for some reason. I wonder why. But anyway, go ahead.
I mean, I don't think the U.S. will turn into a second or even third world country
Really?
when it loses its major reserve status. It
Mhm.
will be still a first world country, but it will be, just think of the UK
Mhm.
used to, after World War II,
Mhm.
it's gone into decline, but it's still a relatively wealthy country compared to the poorer countries.
Yeah.
It's just going to be the standard of living is going to drop,
Right.
even though I mean there are patches in the places in the U.S. and the inner cities that it's like going to a third world country.
Right. Now, reason I mentioned that about second world, third world probably is a little far stretched, but because the majority of people's living standard here has been based upon credit.
Mm,
And I think the banking model, as it's restructured, credit will not be utilized, and it will not be utilized as heavy as it is now to support the lifestyle we have here.
mm.
So therefore, if people had to live within their means, whatever the means are, that means no excess, no more than enough, no right on time delivery, no, having more than you need, more shoes and all that stuff that we've been
Yeah.
forced to consume because of credit. If you take
Yeah.
away all that, it's gonna be just enough.
No more
One car, one house,
big big
whatever.
Slurpees.
Huh?
Big Slurpees. You know, Slurpee,
Yeah,
like maybe a small glass.
we got super size, extra large,
Yeah.
everything here. Like, if you had to actually pay, if you had to actually spend what you had in accordance to what you needed that moment, would you be going for the super size, big, extra large, extra stretch, SUVs?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So anyway, just I think adjustment down to reality. Anyway, all right, let's get to some questions before we get ready to log off. Let's see. Feel free to throw out some thoughts, ideas in the chat. We'll jump on it real quick. We're at the 40-minute mark. We can go all day long if need be, but want to be respectful of everyone's time here.
How, Dr. Mota, how does one shrink a bloated government? Well, with great difficulty. I guess it starts with the voters. They need to think that governments are there not to help them,
Mhm.
but to administer the rule of law. That government doesn't have any money. I think it starts with the voters, and I think unfortunately the great majority of people who vote think that the government owes them something,
Right.
and
Right.
until people think like that, until the general public wants small government, you won't get it.
Right. Yeah. So my thought on that is, I think so. This is where I'm not transitioning, but I'm just trying to think beyond just looking back and being reactive to the news we're being given. A lot of these events is just talking about the underlying, the primary problem. It's not necessarily the currency. That's a symptom. The primary problem is our governance structure. Like, to hear especially about how the WHO is trying to reshape democracy by removing sovereign borders to participate in this global whatever. I'm thinking like they're literally right now under the table. They're reshaping the government structure. And of course, I'm thinking like, so we are given the illusion that our vote counts, but right now we're witnessing that it really does not count. So we need an entire new government, and that's where I'm concerned with the fact that I don't know what that government is in a natural. It's because we're going to have representatives, but if they all compromise, what good is it to vote for them when they get to sit down in the Senate or the House, they're gonna go according to the lobbyists and people who backs they're scratching. So anyway, but yeah, we have a government crisis. That's what it is,
Yeah.
and of course, there's a symptom of that is the money. All right, more questions out here. What you got out here? Here's one from D. It says, "Are the people of the United Kingdom cool with the WHO controlling their healthcare system?"
Yeah, I think it's a little bit like the U.S. There are people who are awake, and
Mhm.
they're not only unhappy with the WHO, but also the NHS, which is
Mhm.
like a national health system here. But on the other hand, the people more towards the left, uh, they're probably loving it, and they think it's necessary.
Yeah, and speaking of which, real quick, we did forget an article while if you see any questions, throw it out there. But we forgot to talk about the Russia situation. Prepared to cut gas supplies to Finland today, and so I was reading through that, and it looks like May 23rd is when the next contract is up, and they, as of now, are refusing to pay in rubles. So I think there will be more nations cut off from that
Mm.
pipeline there. But it says they get between 60 to 70% of Finland's natural gas comes from Russia. And
Yeah,
so
and
we'll see if they jump board on that NATO stuff or not. So
yeah, yeah, that doesn't help the fact that they want to join NATO either.
right. Putin's been very clear. We're not tolerating that. There will be some repercussions. So it's like, how much can you poke the bear before the bear unleashes? Yeah, and that's not going to be pretty at all. All right. Any more thoughts out there, Mario? You see anything?
Let's see.
Yeah, Daryl, you said your vote never counted. I understand that, but it's becoming more obvious now to where I think more people would be willing to believe that than it was a year ago. Oh, Mario, you
Yeah.
forgot to remind me. 2,000 Mules.
Oh yeah, I saw that. You haven't seen it. I'm
Yeah.
sure some of you, the viewers, have seen it. It's a good documentary to watch. I think I got the link from, was it BitChute? I sent you the link.
Yeah.
Yeah, you really need to watch this.
Go back here. So I put So just go to Rumble, type in 2,000 mules, or I put it in the Discord and whatever channel. But here's the little clip of it. But I, watch the clip,
Oh,
and
yeah,
you
Dinesh
literally
D'Souza, it's a really good documentary, but,
see. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, no, go ahead, you
No,
go
I was
ahead.
gonna say you literally see them going to boxes, like ballots, taking photo. I mean, just like it's a well put together little clip. So I imagine the movie is actually even greater, but they actually follow all these people out here operating, for whatever the deep state, elite, whatever you want to call them. But the evidence is there. But once again, it ain't gonna get no traction. So
That's right, it's on BitChute.com. So I think I sent you the link on Twitter, Mike. Maybe you can
yeah,
put it
I'll put it in the
take a
chat
look.
real quick.
Yeah.
But so that was worthwhile. And that's where, like, at this current moment, 2 years into it, I mean, they can come out with actually, I think they could probably have Biden go on stage and slip up and say, yeah, we paid $2-3 million to rig everything. Everything is a fake. It still wouldn't matter because most people don't pay attention or wouldn't care. Or then what will they do? Because once they know truth, then they got to respond to it. And that's where people, tend to cower out. So, but anyway, so let me find our link real quick and I'll put it back up in the
I
chat.
think someone put the link, Gene W put the link
Okay.
in the chat.
Thank you, Jane. Appreciate you. All right. Well, Mario, let's get ready to dial bow, man. Let's get ready to down as always. Head into the weekend. Good weather outside. Definitely want to spend some more time. Leave us with some words of wisdom if you don't mind, my friend.
Well, for as far as the precious metals is concerned, I know it's been a tough few weeks, and I think this is when you need the patience and the nerves. Uh, and Yeah, I think what's happening here is like confiscation, because people a lot of times ask, "Oh, is the U.S. government going to confiscate gold again?"
Yeah.
Well, they don't have to, because I'm sure the price action in gold and silver this week is put many people off buying physical gold and silver. But I always think, what's the alternative?
Right.
To cash my gold and silver and put it in the bank and finance these guys. And so that's all I would say. Just uh, yeah, don't get discouraged. I've been at this for 20 years and it's all never been easy, but 20 years ago, gold was at $300, and
Right.
I just wish I rolled it up even more. And
Right.
probably we're not going to have to wait another 20 years to see a lot higher prices. So that's
Right.
my
So
words.
yeah, on my side, I try to encourage people, of course, as you mentioned, think long term. And so just
Mm,
here is the US dollar in gold terms. If you had come across this information earlier, you wouldn't be in a position where you'll be on the losing side of this equation as much as people who are still in the system entirely.
mm.
And so I came across this information less than 10 years ago, and I haven't stopped or looked back since. And so I think I would like to think, of course, no one can be perfectly prepared for anything, but I'm, part of a 1% group of alternative media people who are, have taken some steps. Taking some
Yeah.
steps is better than not have done anything. So think long term, be patient, man, enjoy the moment, because right now things are as good as they're going to be, because tomorrow they're trying to make it even worse for us. So enjoy the day, be grateful for what you do have, because once again, if you're in the developed nations, you're doing better than the average. So count your blessings for sure. So all right then. Well, everybody, be blessed, be safe, have a great weekend. Back at it again next week. There's always going to be stuff to touch on, and so definitely, just enjoy yourself, and see you guys next week. Peace.
Peace.